Today I will continue talking about generosity. It's the basis for all of our practice, generosity. We cannot cultivate a practice without a generous heart. The Buddha said that if we knew as he did about the power of giving, then we would not let a single meal pass without sharing something. So last week I talked about cultivating the wish to give within our own hearts, which is the perfection of generosity, or dana paramita. When we have cultivated the wish to give within our own hearts. Today I'd like to talk about the generosity of freedom from fear. As you may recall, there are three types of generosity. There's the generosity of material goods and money. There's the generosity of freedom from fear. And there's the generosity of the Dharma. And all three of these are very important. The generosity of freedom from fear is one that I particularly like to talk about. It's not being a superhero and eradicating fear from the world, but it's more about how do we cultivate our practice so that we can offer freedom from fear to others. This is an offering, a generous offering that's oriented toward how can I help? How can I be of service? More than, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to me? Well, I want us all to take a moment and just think of a time where you were afraid, not terrified, just afraid, a little afraid. It might be a physical danger, it might be something you were afraid of, a meeting with somebody, whatever it is. Just don't find the worst time, just a time that you were afraid. So now that you have it, I want everybody to close your eyes for just a minute and recall that time. And then show me with your body, exaggerate how you feel with your body. So what I'm seeing here, and you can open your eyes, what I'm seeing here and online is a lot of closing, which is a natural fear response, right? We want to, as animals, we want to protect our vital organs, especially our heart. So now think of a time when you felt afraid or worried and somebody was helpful. Maybe they did something kind, or maybe you saw something that inspired you, something helpful. So if you have that time, close your eyes again and exaggerate. Show me with your body how that felt to you. Okay. And then you can open your eyes. I'm seeing a lot of opening. This week I felt this when I saw images in the news of so many clergy people gathering at the airport in Minnesota. I don't know if you saw those images. It's very cold, and they were in all their coats and hats and gloves, but they had put their robes or their stoles or whatever symbol of religion belonged to them on the outside of their coats. And I saw them standing together, and I felt I was with them myself. And I just saw this long line of, those of us who are clergy, we're not the we're not the most buff people. Like, we're not a crowd there's some people who are, but we tend to be sort of quiet, thoughtful, doughy sometimes people. and I felt so much strength in this peaceful crowd who showed up for the benefit of others. I wonder if they felt afraid in coming. I wonder how being there together as a group felt. I wondered how other people felt when they saw this image. Did you see it yourself? How did you feel? It wasn't thousands of people. It was a representation of a group of people who saw a situation in which there's fear. And yes, other things as well. Anger, discord, sadness, grief, despair, all of these. And they decided to show up together. And just that one gesture gave us a counter narrative. Gave us a different perspective. I have friends who were there. I felt really heartened seeing them. Pleased to know them. One of them is a priest who spent years as an educator. And I thought of him working all of those years for the benefit of children, and now showing up in a very different way for the benefit of children and others. And I felt heartened by that. Today I want us all to realize that we can do this ourselves. We can offer the generosity of freedom from fear to others. This is something we can give. But it takes a steady practice, a strong sense of who we are as practitioners. In other words, a strong ethical foundation, a strong practice base in which we've let the me that's so loud dissolve and come into an understanding that we're all in this world together equally. But it takes some work. It takes courage, of course. And it's something accessible to all of us. How can we offer the generosity of freedom from fear? We can do this by trying it out. Testing. Find little ways before you go to the biggest one possible. There's an image that I love. I really love. And if any of you know how to find this image, this is something I would like to hang in the temple. It's something during the time of the Saffron Revolution, which was a time in Myanmar when the monks came out into the streets and faced the army face to face. And the image that I love is of the army with their guns facing the monks barefoot, and the monks are chanting. They're chanting the Metta Sutra. They're offering loving kindness to these men with guns. And if you remember the Saffron Revolution, you'll also remember what happened, which is that those guns became used. The people holding the guns used them on the monks, and many monks died chanting the Loving Kindness Sutra. This is the kind of pinnacle of what we might be able to do. But we start in our own backyard. We start small. We start with our family and our friends and those things that frighten us. We start with our practice and cultivating an ethical stability. We start with our intention, which is to make the entire world a calmer and safer place for everyone. A calmer and safer place for everyone. That's not that hard to fathom. Don't you want that? I want that. I want to live in a calm and safe place where everybody's calm and safe. Feels like a good goal. So let's join each other and support each other in that intention and making the world a calmer and safer place for everyone. It takes facing our fear and more. But this beautiful, beautiful practice of generosity has the benefit of transforming the mind of both the giver and the receiver. Even those soldiers holding the guns were transformed by receiving the Metta Sutra, by receiving loving kindness, by receiving the generosity of freedom from fear. It starts within. And it helps us move from compassion as a reaction, as a short-term thing, to just a way of life. We're good here in America at compassion as a reaction. You know, there's a GoFundMe for everything, right? Somebody dies, let's make a GoFundMe for them, which is sweet. It's very nice and generous and kind. We want to do something to help. So we'd like to offer them money, perhaps to offset the funeral costs, perhaps to help raise their children who are left behind. Even in the case of Renee Nicole Good, there is a GoFundMe to care for her dog. That's very beautiful. Let's move beyond these reactive ways of being compassionate to a day-to-day way. Let's incorporate this into our whole life, not just the times when something dire happens. In order to talk about the generosity of freedom from fear, we should talk about fear a little bit. How does it feel even when I say that? Can you touch the fear? We all have fear. This is normal. And fear is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, fear has protective quality. If you think of a child who's just about to run into the street and the parent is afraid and very strongly, stop! You know, the kid hears that. It has a root in protection and selflessness. But fear can also make us freeze and feel powerless. It's also an instinctive response. And when we freeze and feel powerless, we become out of connection with the world around us. Our practice requires us to be connected to come into connection, to really honor and feel that connection. So we have to counter those feelings of powerlessness, that fear that paralyzes. And the way that we do that is by offering rather than being stuck. This week, many of us saw another image in the news of a little boy who had been detained or arrested by immigrations and customs enforcement and sent to another state. This little boy is from Minnesota, this very, very cold place, and had been sent to Texas. Did any of you see that image? His name is Liam, which I thought is a really nice Irish name for a little Spanish-speaking boy. So American. And if you saw that photo of little Liam, what did you see? Like, what did y'all see? Those of you I can hear. What did you feel when you saw this little boy? What's he look like? Give me some description words.
Innocent.
Innocent?
Cute.
Cute. He's so cute. What else?
Purity.
Purity, yeah. He looks so small. When you saw him, what did it bring up for you? Let's put it in our own yard. If you saw little Liam with his little Pokemon hat on in your front yard or at your door, what would your impulse be?
Mothering.
To mother him. Yeah, mothering. What else? To give. I would, to take care of him. Especially if his parents weren't around. And I found myself transported through the newspaper all the way from New York to Minnesota. This is my imagination. Stepping in, putting my own body in between the officers and that child, or grabbing that child and holding him and daring them to take him from me. This is the generosity of freedom from fear, but you can see that this very strong motivation can help us to bypass our fear response. When we're motivated by compassion, which is easy with children. It's easy with animals. But let's extend that love that we have so easily for innocent little kids. Just grow it a little bit. Grow it to each other. Expand. You can be creative. Expand to Liam's dad, who's an adult. Not so cute, maybe. I didn't see him. He might be cute, but not cute in a little boy way. Not so cute, but Liam needs him. So for the benefit of this cute, innocent little kid, maybe we could extend that. So this is connecting us. I felt so connected with somebody I don't even know through this need to protect. This special kind of generosity, this want, this need for Liam to be free from fear, to be safe. The way to face our fears is through our practice of Zazen. This gives us a place, a quiet place, a place that's protected and safe, to face our fears internally through settling our mind, letting our body settle, allowing that charged up instinct to settle, to settle, to settle. And out of this, compassion can grow. We know from the Lotus Sutra especially, but through our lives, we know that compassion is the antidote to fear. Every morning when we chant the Lotus Sutra, we hear over and over all the different ways that compassion helps us meet fears. You know, when we meet vicious bandits with swords drawn to strike, we call on the power of compassion. When we're out at sea in a storm, we call on the power of compassion. It goes through example after example after example. And we grow this compassion through our Zazen practice and through our relationship with Sangha, with each other. And as we grow this compassion in this quiet, safe place, we have to keep finding our edge, that edge of fear, and keep pushing at it. Not way out here, not into terror, but the edge of fear. In our lives, we have a lot of things that we can feel afraid of. So we have a lot of things we can work with. Are you afraid? What are your personal fears? Are you afraid of being poor? Are you afraid of driving on the road? Are you afraid of growing old? It's time to face them and to cultivate this giving rather than this frozen state. If you're afraid of not having enough, you might counter that by offering. If you're afraid of not having enough food, you might counter that by working in a place that offers food, or by donating food, or by giving food to someone who's hungry. Counter it. If you're afraid of driving on the road and you need this big car, like I remember once a friend told me she had they'd recently bought a big, like an SUV when those first became popular. And she said, I feel so safe sitting in this car. And I had a really little car then. And I was like, I don't feel safe at all with you in that car. So how can we cultivate an awareness of others? If we're driving a big car, can I even call that a car? If we're driving a big thing, a big truck, then be aware of how the people in the tiny cars might feel when you're near them, and don't tailgate them. Back off a little. Give them some space. Let them in. There are ways everywhere to cultivate this generosity of freedom from fear when we're looking for them. When we have our awareness open. If we're afraid of death, of growing old, hang out with an older person. Be with them. It's accessible. When we separate, we become out of connection, then we lose the ability to practice compassion. So we have to counter that by reconnecting. Anger separates us. How do we reconnect? Fear can separate us. How do we reconnect? It's important to keep this alive and engaged so that we don't get stuck. Fear also fear not only disconnects us, but it prevents us from doing the things we love, from really thriving in this life, from living to our full potential. We can do so much when we learn to move from, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to me, toward how can I benefit you? It's just a shift in orientation. That's very possible for all of us to do. We move from safety for myself to safety for the entire world. And the thing about this is, safety for the entire world is safety for myself. You know, if we, out of fear, create the causes and conditions for a war to develop, then who's ultimately going to be harmed? Me. So we can create the causes and conditions for kindness and compassion and freedom from fear. Then we also ultimately benefit, and our families benefit, and the whole world benefits. This takes some bravery. The truth is, we should be more concerned about disconnectedness than connectedness. There's a particular kind of disconnectedness that leads people to take joy in harming others. There's a particular kind of disconnectedness that causes people to celebrate when others are hurt. And this lack of humanity hurts everybody. We cannot afford to engage in this, nor can we afford to judge those who are stuck in this trap. This particular kind of joy in celebrating in the misfortune of others fragments the whole world. And that's what we see happening now. So we have to take particular care not to become part of that by becoming fixed in our anger. We have to take particular care not to get stuck. Because when we see this happen, it's a very natural response to feel quite alarmed. The person who takes joy in harming others feels unnatural. So then our impulse becomes to start to dehumanize them, to see them as, pick whatever word comes up in your head. And just be honest. You don't have to tell everyone. You know that it's here. A monster, evil, a Nazi, whatever that word is for you, it's already created a separation. And as you recall, this separation prevents compassion. We can't afford to engage in this ourselves. We can't afford to wait for our turn to be the one to what? To do something cruel? To push someone away? We can't afford to do this because it disconnects us. And connection is how we find true compassion. And this connection that leads to compassion that allows us to practice the generosity of freedom from fear is how we stay safe and provide safety for the entire world. So there's a lot at stake here. Compassion takes courage. But the thing about this compassion-inspired courage is the more we practice compassion-based courage, the more it grows in the world around us. The more we practice compassion, the more we get to live in a world with a basis of compassion. So I want to encourage everybody to really find ways in your daily life when you feel that twinge of alarm that's not even quite fear. Observe it and see if you can turn it from, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to me, to how can I help someone else? How can I show up in this moment? Turn it toward the perfection of generosity. In this case, the generosity of freedom from fear. The perfection, the paramita of generosity, which is, to remind you, when we have cultivated the wish to give within our own hearts. It comes from within. We're not talking about the outcome. We're talking about the shift that happens within our own hearts. Thank you.